The primitive humans butchered the peaceful Riemann ambassadors in cold blood, an act of savage brutality that haunted the advanced alien civilization for millennia. The Riemanns cowered in the shadows, plagued by an all-consuming terror of human barbarity, covertly sabotaging mankind's every attempt to reach for the stars, desperate to ensure the genocidal primates never infested the galaxy. Orbiting a nondescript world in a backwater arm of the Milky Way, human explorer Nicholas Burns gaped in astonishment as his scans revealed a technologically advanced Riemann city hidden beneath the planet's barren surface. He had stumbled upon the greatest secret in human history, an alien species that had been observing Earth for centuries, yet lived in constant fear of discovery. Burns snuck into the alien metropolis, evading their superior sensors and security through sheer human ingenuity and grit. As he hacked into their databases, a blood-chilling revelation awaited him. Thousands of years ago, Riemann emissaries visited Earth on a mission of peace, but were brutally slain by mankind's primitive ancestors. This dark act left an indelible scar on the Riemann psyche, a deep-rooted conviction that humans were violent savages that must be contained at all costs. Xenos, the Riemann's enigmatic leader, had Burns captured and dragged before the alien council. Burns pleaded with them to see reason, arguing that humanity had matured beyond their ancestors' savagery. But his words fell on deaf ears. Xenos declared that the human discovery of their hidden civilization had sealed mankind's fate. The Riemann Armada was already preparing a devastating preemptive attack to bomb humanity back to the Stone Age before they could retaliate. Now, the survival of the entire human race rests on Burns's shoulders as he races to prevent an apocalyptic war born from an ancient misunderstanding. Burns must broker peace between an advanced civilization driven by millennia of xenophobic terror and his own species obliviously charging towards an enemy they never knew existed. If he fails, the human-Riemann first contact will end in mutually assured genocide, and galactic domination will slip forever through mankind's fingers. Burns' heart pounded as he raced through the winding corridors of the Riemann stronghold, evading the clutches of his alien captors. His mind reeled with the weight of the revelation he had uncovered. The Riemanns, driven by an ancient terror, were preparing to unleash a devastating assault on humanity. He knew he had to act fast, or countless lives would be lost in a senseless war born of fear and misunderstanding. With a burst of desperate speed, Burns reached the sprawling Riemann spaceport. Towering spacecraft loomed above him, their hulls gleaming with alien technology far beyond human ken. Burns scanned the bustling port, his eyes locking onto the imposing form of the Riemann flagship. He knew that Xenos, the enigmatic leader of the Riemanns, would be aboard, preparing to spearhead the attack on human space. Burns slipped aboard the flagship, his heart in his throat as he navigated the unfamiliar corridors, praying that his presence would go undetected. As he emerged onto the bridge, he found himself face to face with Xenos, the alien's features set in unyielding commitment. "Xenos, wait!" Burns called out, his voice cracking with desperation. "You can't do this. Genocide won't solve anything. It will only lead to more violence, more suffering." Xenos regarded Burns with a mix of surprise and contempt, his eyes narrowing. "You don't understand, human," he spat. "We have seen your kind's true nature. Your history is written in blood, an endless cycle of war and cruelty. If we don't strike now, you will inevitably turn your violence upon us." Burns shook his head, his voice urgent. "That's not true. Humanity has changed. We're not the savages we once were. Please, Xenos, call off the attack. Give us a chance to prove ourselves, to forge a new path forward." As Burns and Xenos argued, their voices rising in intensity, a sudden shockwave rocked the ship. Alarms blared as the flagship shuddered under a barrage of weapons fire. Burns realized with a surge of dread that a human stealth ship had tracked his stolen technology and opened fire on the Riemann vessel, catching them off guard. Xenos crumpled to the deck, gravely wounded by the attack. In the chaos, Burns seized his chance. He leaped to the ship's controls, his explorer training kicking in as he quickly deciphered the alien interface. With trembling hands, He hailed the human attackers, identifying himself and ordering them to stand down. "This is Nicholas Burns," he broadcast, his voice shaking with adrenaline. "Cease fire immediately. I have taken control of the Riemann flagship. The attack on human space is off." Burns then opened a channel to the rest of the Riemann fleet, his words echoing through the void. "All ships, this is Nicholas Burns. Xenos has been injured. By his authority, I am ordering you to break off the attack and return to your hidden system at once. We must give diplomacy a chance." To Burns's relief, the Riemann ships began to turn, their engines flaring as they abandoned their offensive and retreated to the safety of their concealed world. Burns sagged back in the command chair, his heart racing. He knew he had only bought time, not truly averted the looming specter of war. In the medical bay, Burns knelt beside the injured Xenos, the alien's breathing labored. "Xenos, please," Burns whispered. "My actions today prove that humans are capable of change, of choosing a different path. The upcoming peace talks are our chance to start anew, to break the cycle of fear and hostility between our peoples." Xenos met Burns' gaze, his eyes clouded with pain and uncertainty. Perhaps there is more to your species than I believed," he admitted, his voice strained. "You have shown courage and compassion, human. Traits I did not think your kind possessed." Burns felt a flicker of hope in his chest, a fragile glimmer of the possibility that Riemanns and humans could coexist peacefully. But he knew the road ahead was treacherous. Extremists on both sides would seek to derail any chance at peace. And if the truth of the Riemanns' secret interference in human affairs came to light, it could ignite a powder keg of hatred and retribution. As Burns tended to Xenos' wounds, he steeled himself for the monumental task that lay before them. Brokering peace would require every ounce of diplomacy, every shred of understanding and compromise he could muster. The fate of two civilizations hung in the balance, and Burns knew he could not falter. The future of both species would be forged in the delicate dance of negotiation that awaited them. The peace talks were going well. Too well, Burns thought. He should have known it wouldn't last. A thunderous explosion rocked the conference chamber. Shards of glass and debris rained down as smoke filled the air. Burns instinctively dove for cover, pulling Xenos down with him. "What's happening?" Xenos shouted over the chaos. Burns didn't have time to respond. A group of armed Riemanns stormed into the room, their weapons trained on the human delegation. At their head was a face Burns knew all too well, Admiral Zachary Killian. "Death to the human scum!" Killian roared. The militants opened fire. Screams filled the air as diplomats fell. Burns grabbed a fallen guard's weapon and returned fire, trying to push the attackers back. Xenos rallied his security forces, and soon the chamber became a battleground. Burns and Xenos fought side by side, covering each other as they tried to evacuate the surviving delegates. The floor was slick with blood, the air thick with smoke, and the acrid smell of weapons fire. Finally, after what felt like hours, the last of the militants fell. Burns surveyed the carnage, his heart heavy. So many dead, their chance at peace lying in ruins around them. He found Killian sprawled near the door, blood pooling beneath him. The Admiral's eyes fluttered open as Burns approached. "You fool," Burns spat. "What have you done?" Killian coughed, blood speckling his lips. "Doesn't matter. You're too late anyway." "What are you talking about?" "The Galactic Council," Killian wheezed. "They're voting to quarantine Earth, contain the human threat." Burns felt the blood drain from his face. "What council? What are you talking about?" Killian's laugh turned into a wet cough. "The real power in the galaxy. They've been watching us, manipulated by Riemann hardliners for years. They think humans are too dangerous. Where are they? How do I stop this?" Killian's eyes were growing dim. "Hidden headquarters. You have to go. Plead humanity's case before it's too late." With a final rattling breath, Killian was gone. Burns turned to find Xenos staring at him, the Raymond's face unreadable. "Is this true?" Burns demanded. Has your people been manipulating some galactic governing body against us this whole time? Xenos looked away. It's complicated. Burns ran a hand through his hair, mind racing. He had to get to this council, but the peace talks were hanging by a thread. I need to split up our team, Burns said. My lieutenant, Lucas West, can continue negotiations here with the moderates. I have to find this council. Xenos nodded slowly. I'll provide you with one of our stealth scouts. It's our fastest ship. It should get you there undetected. Hours later, Burns found himself navigating the scout through an asteroid field, following the coordinates Xenos had provided. His sensors chirped a warning. Another ship was approaching fast. Before Burns could react, a sleek vessel of unfamiliar design pulled alongside him. A voice crackled over his comm system. Human vessel, power down your engines and prepare to be boarded. Burns' hand hovered over the weapon's controls. Then the voice spoke again. I am Zara of the Voth. We have much to discuss about the future of your species. Burns gripped the control yoke of the Voth scout ship, his fingers tightening as they approached the massive space station that housed the Galactic Council headquarters. The station loomed before them, a sprawling construct of gleaming metal and pulsing energy fields. Activating cloaking field now, Zara said, her fingers dancing across the alien control panel. The ship shimmered and vanished from view. Burns held his breath as they glided past the outer defensive perimeter, half expecting alarms to blare at any moment. But the Voth technology held true, and they slipped inside undetected. Zara led Burns through winding corridors, dodging patrols of hulking alien guards. They reached a maintenance hatch and squeezed inside, emerging into the upper gallery of the main council chambers. Burns's eyes widened as he took in the vast amphitheater below. Dozens of alien delegates filled the tiered seating, their forms ranging from vaguely humanoid to utterly bizarre. At the center, a group of Riemann officials delivered impassioned testimony. And so you see, esteemed council, that the humans are nothing but savages, one Riemann sneered. They must be contained before they can threaten galactic peace. Burns clenched his fists, rage boiling inside him. He started to stand, but Zara grabbed his arm. Wait, she hissed. Look. She pointed to a holographic sign floating near the entrance. Notice, all recording devices strictly forbidden in council chambers. Violators will be prosecuted to the fullest extent of galactic law. Damn, Burns muttered. How can we prove what's really happening here? We can't, Zara replied grimly. And the council's ruling will be binding across the entire galaxy. We have to find another way. They watched in mounting frustration as the Raymonds continued their character assassination of humanity. Burns could take no more. With a burst of speed, he vaulted over the railing and landed in the council chamber below. Stop! He shouted. You can't decide humanity's fate without hearing from an actual human. Chaos erupted in the chamber. Delegates leapt to their feet, shouting in a cacophony of alien languages. Several burly guards rushed towards Burns. How dare you interrupt these proceedings? Bellowed the council leader, a towering insectoid creature. Remove this intruder at once. Wait! Zara's voice rang out as she stepped into view. I am Zara of the Voth. This human speaks the truth. You must hear him out before rendering judgment. A hush fell over the crowd. The insectoid leader's antennae twitched in agitation. The Voth. Very well. We will hear what the human has to say. Burns took a deep breath and began to speak. He recounted the tragic first contact between humans and Raymonds, explaining how a simple misunderstanding had spiraled into centuries of fear and prejudice. We are not the savages the Raymonds paint us to be, Burns pleaded. Humanity has grown, evolved. We seek peace and understanding with all galactic species. Please, give us a chance to prove ourselves. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Some delegates nodded thoughtfully, while others remained skeptical. Burns dared to hope he might be getting through to them. Suddenly, the chamber's massive view screens flickered to life. Gasps and cries of shock filled the air as images and audio recordings began to play. We cannot allow the humans to reach the stars, a Raymond voice snarled. Sabotage their lunar landers. Make it look like an accident. Another recording. The human Mars colony is too close to succeeding. Trigger a reactor meltdown. Kill them all if you have to. On and on it went, damning evidence of centuries of Raymond interference and sabotage. Burns recognized some of the files from his mission aboard the Raymond flagship. His heart raced as he realized what this meant. Xenos and the moderate Raymonds had secretly shared this information, trusting Burns to use it wisely. The council exploded into outrage. The insectoid leader's voice boomed above the din. This is an outrage. The Raymond delegation is hereby expelled from this council. Sanctions will be imposed immediately. The Raymond delegates' faces contorted with fury. Their leader jabbed a finger at Burns. You engineered this, he howled. This human and his Voth conspirator have played you all for fools. Mark my words. This treachery will not go unanswered. We will wipe humanity from existence. As the Raymonds stormed from the chamber, Burns locked eyes with Zara. The magnitude of what had just happened crashed over him like a tidal wave. They had won humanity's right to exist. But at what cost? We have to get out of here, Zara said urgently. Now! Burns nodded numbly, his mind blown. As they fled the council chambers, a sickening realization took hold. He may have just inadvertently started the very war he had sought to prevent. Burns's heart pounded as he and Zara sprinted through the winding corridors of the Galactic Council headquarters. Alarms blared, and the thundering footsteps of security forces echoed behind them. This way, Zara hissed, yanking Burns around a corner. They burst through an airlock and into the docking bay where Zara's sleek Voth ship waited. As the ship's engines roared to life, Burns glimpsed a squad of hulking alien guards charging into the bay. Plasma bolts sizzled past the viewport as Zara expertly maneuvered the ship out of the station and into open space. That was too close, Burns panted, slumping into the co-pilot's seat. Zara's reptilian features were taut with concentration as she plotted their escape vector. Suddenly, the ship's communication array crackled to life. Burns! Burns, do you read me? The panicked voice of Lucas West filled the cockpit. West, what's wrong? It's chaos here. Zelos and his hardliners. They've seized control. There was a coup. Xenos is in custody and the moderates are being hunted down. Burns felt the blood drain from his face. What about the peace talks? West's bitter laugh crackled through the speakers. Peace? Zelos has declared total war on humanity. He's mobilizing the entire Raymond fleet. Burns, they're coming for Earth, for all of us. As West detailed the full extent of the crisis, Burns's mind reeled. The leaked files, the Raymonds' expulsion from the council. He'd inadvertently given Zelos everything he needed to justify this insanity. We need to warn Earth, Burns said, his voice hoarse. Rally our defenses. Zara shook her head. It won't be enough. The Raymond war machine is too powerful. We need help. The Voth, Burns realized. Your people could intervene. Yes, Zara agreed. I'll set course for the Voth homeworld immediately. Burns stared out at the star-streaked void of hyperspace, his gut churning. Wait, he said suddenly. I have another idea. We need to make a stop first. Where? Sadrana. It's a desert world, officially uninhabited. But it's home to the Ghosts, Earth's most elite special forces. If anyone can help us stop this war before it starts, it's them. Hours later, their ship touched down on Sadrana's scorching surface. Burns led Zara across sun-baked dunes to a nondescript rock formation. He placed his hand on a seemingly ordinary stone, and a hidden door slid open. Inside the climate-controlled base, Burns came face to face with a grizzled man whose weathered features bore the scars of countless battles. Commander Denwall, Burns said, snapping to attention. Denwall's steel-gray eyes bored into Burns. At ease, son. I take it this isn't a social call. Burns quickly briefed Denwall on the dire situation. The old commander listened intently, his expression growing grimmer by the second. "So," Danwalt said when Burns finished, "the Remans are finally making their move." "Yes, sir, and we need your help to stop them." Danwalt nodded, a fierce light kindling in his eyes. "Then let's get to work." Over the next few hours, Burns, Zara, and Danwalt formulated their desperate plan. They pored over stolen schematics of the secret Reman shipyards where Zelos's invasion fleet was gathering. "The key is this virus," Danwalt explained, gesturing to lines of alien code scrolling across a holographic display. "If we can upload it to their central computer core, it'll cripple their entire fleet." "But we need access codes to get past their cyber defenses," Burns pointed out. Danwalt's expression darkened. "Codes that only someone in Xenos' position would have." A heavy silence fell over the room as the implications sank in. "Then we have no choice," Burns said, his voice filled with grim purpose. "We have to rescue Xenos." Danwalt nodded. "It's the only way. I'll assemble 2 strike teams, one for the extraction, one for the shipyards." As the ghosts prepared for their mission, Burns found himself staring at a tactical display of the Reman home system. The stakes had never been higher. If they failed, Earth and all of humanity would burn. Danwalt approached, his battle armor gleaming. "Ready?" Burns took a deep breath and nodded. "Let's go save all of the galaxy." The ghost team split into 2 units, their paths diverging as they set out on their desperate missions. Lucas West led his extraction team toward the Reman detention facility, while Burns and Commander Danwalt headed for the clandestine shipyard. West's team approached the prison complex under cover of darkness. The facility loomed before them, a fortress of gleaming metal and crackling energy fields. Guards patrolled the perimeter, their weapons at the ready. "All right, listen up," West whispered to his squad. "We go in fast and quiet. Our target is Xenos. Find him, extract him, and get out. No heroics." They moved swiftly, disabling security systems and taking down guards with precision strikes. As they penetrated deeper into the complex, alarms began to blare. The team fought their way through corridors, exchanging fire with Zelos's loyalists. Meanwhile, Burns and Danwalt led their strike squad toward the Reman shipyard. They used stealth insertion craft to slip past the outer defenses, relying on careful timing and misdirection. As they approached the main production facilities, Burns signaled a halt. "Look," he said, pointing to a massive hangar. Inside, row upon row of Reman warships stood ready for deployment. Danwalt's eyes narrowed. "We're running out of time. Let's move." They fought their way through the shipyard, using ambush tactics to overcome the Reman security forces. Burns watched in awe as Danwalt, despite his age, moved with deadly efficiency. Finally, they reached the central computer core. Burns stood guard while Danwalt worked to upload the virus. "Almost there," Danwalt muttered, his fingers flying over the alien interface. Suddenly, the door to the chamber hissed open. A figure in Reman armor strode in, weapon raised. Burns opened fire, but the newcomer was too quick. A plasma bolt struck Danwalt in the chest, and he crumpled to the floor. "No!" Burns cried, rushing to his mentor's side. Danwalt gripped Burns's arm, his breath coming in ragged gasps. "Listen, the operative. He's human." Burns' eyes widened in shock as Danwalt explained the traitor's identity and actions. With his dying breath, the old commander gave Burns the codes to override the sabotaged virus. Before Burns could act, an explosion rocked the facility. Through the smoke, he saw the human turncoat escaping in a small ship. Alarms blared as the shipyard went into lockdown. Burns and the surviving ghosts found themselves trapped, watching helplessly as Zelos's armada began to deploy. Burns activated his comlink. "West, come in. We're compromised. You have to get Xenos out now. He's our only hope to stop the cloaked Reman ships heading for Earth." Static crackled over the line. Burns could only pray that West's team would succeed where he had failed. Lucas West crouched behind a twisted piece of metal, plasma bolts sizzling past his head. The acrid stench of ozone and burning flesh filled his nostrils. He glanced at the bodies of his fallen comrades strewn across the prison corridor, their faces frozen in eternal anguish. "Jensen, cover me!" West shouted, his voice hoarse from the smoke. As Jensen laid down suppressing fire, West sprinted across the open space, diving into cover beside the cell block entrance. He slammed his palm against the access panel, overriding the security protocols with a burst of encrypted data. The door slid open with a hiss, revealing an empty cell. West's heart sank as he scanned the barren room. "Damn it! Xenos isn't here!" A garbled transmission crackled through his comm unit. "West, underground bunker, execution chamber." West's eyes widened. "Copy that. All units converge on my position. We're going deeper." The surviving members of his squad fought their way through waves of Xelos' fanatical guards. Blood and spent shell casings littered the floor as they descended into the bowels of the facility. Finally, they reached a heavily fortified blast door. West placed breaching charges along the seams, then signaled his team to take cover. The explosion rocked the corridor, and West's team surged through the smoke. They emerged into a cavernous chamber dominated by a raised platform. There, flanked by armed guards, stood Xenos. The deposed Raymond leader's face was battered and bruised, but his eyes burned with defiance. Before West could act, a massive hologram flickered to life, filling the chamber with the sneering visage of Zelos. "Ah, the human interlopers," Zelos' voice boomed. "Just in time to witness the fall of your pathetic species." With a gesture, Zelos activated a view screen. West watched in horror as Riemann warships rained destruction upon human colonies. Cities burned. Civilians screamed. "This is the price of your interference," Zelos gloated. "And now, witness the death of your last hope." As Zelos began to read out Xenos' death sentence, the chamber plunged into darkness. Chaos erupted as hidden Riemann moderates, led by Xenos' aide Harkoon, ambushed Zelos' forces. West seized the moment, leading his team in a desperate charge. Plasma bolts crisscrossed the air as ghosts and moderates fought side by side. West ducked and weaved through the melee, making his way to Xenos. "We need to move now!" West shouted, freeing Xenos from his restraints. As they fought their way toward the exit, Harkoon's voice rang out. "Go! I'll hold them off!" West glanced back to see Harkoon manning a defensive turret, cutting down waves of enemy reinforcements. The loyal Riemann gave West a solemn nod before turning back to the fight. They reached a concealed hangar, only to find their extraction craft a smoking ruin. West cursed, scanning the area for alternatives, his eyes locked onto a sleek Riemann strike bomber. "That's our ticket out of here," West declared, racing toward the alien craft. As Xenos and the surviving team provided cover fire, West worked feverishly to hotwire the bomber's systems. Sweat beaded on his forehead as he spliced wires and bypassed security protocols. "We've got incoming!" one of the ghosts shouted. West's hands flew across the alien controls, jury-rigging shield emitters to protect their makeshift escape vehicle. The engines roared to life just as enemy forces breached the hangar. "Everyone in now," West bellowed. The bomber lurched skyward, its hull shuddering under heavy fire. They punched through the atmosphere, alarms blaring as pursuing craft closed in. Xenos leaned forward, his voice urgent. "West, I have the override codes. We must transmit them immediately." West's fingers danced across the comms array, establishing a link to Burns. "Burns, this is West. Transmitting vital data now. Use it to stop the virus." As the codes streamed through subspace, West allowed himself a moment of hope. They'd done it. They'd given humanity a fighting chance. But as they rocketed toward the safety of human space, West knew the war was far from finished. Somewhere on the Riemann homeworld, Zelos was already plotting his revenge. The initial victory against Zelos' invasion fleet proved short-lived. As the dust settled, Burns and his allies found themselves facing a new, insidious threat. Deep beneath the Riemann homeworld's crust, Zelos and his loyalists retreated to an ancient military installation. The complex, dubbed the Sanctum, sprawled through a vast network of caverns. Forgotten for millennia, it now buzzed with activity as Zelos followers transformed it into a hidden fortress. In the command center, Zelos hunched over holo displays, his eyes gleaming with malice. "Our setback is temporary," he hissed to his inner circle. "We'll bleed Xenos' regime dry from the shadows." On the surface, life seemed to return to normal. But beneath the veneer of peace, Zelos' Deathblade commandos struck with brutal efficiency. The first attack came without warning. At the capital's space dock, Security Officer Tarek checked his sensors, frowning at an anomalous reading. Before he could investigate further, explosions ripped through the defense grid. Sirens wailed as the docking bays erupted in flames. Tarek stumbled through smoke-filled corridors, desperately trying to coordinate a response, but it was too late. Zelos' stealth cruisers emerged from cloak, raining plasma fire on the defenseless city. In the High Council chambers, Xenos barely escaped with his life as the building crumbled around him. He crawled from the rubble, clothes torn and face bloodied, to survey the devastation. This cannot stand," Xenos rasped, turning to his advisors. "Contact Burns. We need the ghosts." Days later, an unmarked dropship sliced through Riemann airspace. Inside, Ember Wade briefed her team of elite operatives. "Intel suggests the Deathblades are planning to hit multiple targets across the capital. Our job is to link up with Xenos' forces and shut them down." The ghosts hit the ground running, moving through back alleys to rendezvous with their Riemann counterparts. Despite initial wariness, the two groups quickly found common ground in their shared mission. Riemann Commando Voss nodded approvingly as he watched Wade's team move with fluid precision. "Your reputation is well earned," he said. "Perhaps together we can end this madness." For weeks, they waged a relentless campaign against Zelos' insurgents. Ghost and Riemann worked in perfect sync, thwarting attacks and gathering crucial intelligence. But the victories came at a cost. Entire city blocks lay in ruins, casualties mounting with each engagement. In a dingy safe house, Wade pored over tactical readouts. "They're getting desperate," she muttered. "These suicide bombings are tearing the city apart." Voss leaned in, pointing to a blinking indicator. "New intel just came in. They've acquired antimatter weapons." Wade's blood ran cold. "Compact demolition devices with unimaginable yield. If they deploy those—" Alarms blared, cutting off her words. A voice crackled over the comm. "Multiple hostiles converging on Central Intelligence HQ. Antimatter signature detected." Wade sprang into action, barking orders as her team geared up. "This is it, people. We stop them here or it's all over." They raced through panicked crowds as evacuation sirens wailed. The intelligence complex loomed ahead, a fortress under siege. Deathblade commandos had already breached the outer defenses. Wade led the charge, her rifle spitting death as they fought their way inside. Bodies littered the corridors, Riemann security forces who'd died buying time for the evacuation. "Server core," Wade shouted over the din of battle. "That's where they'll plant the device." They battled floor by floor, time slipping away with each passing second. Finally, they reached the core level. Wade spotted a hulking Deathblade lieutenant entering the server room. "Go!" she ordered her team. "Secure the perimeter. I'm going after the bomb." Wade sprinted into the server room, plasma bolts sizzling past her head. The Deathblade turned, his alien features twisted in a snarl. Between them sat the antimatter device, its countdown already engaged. They clashed in a brutal melee, neither willing to give ground. Wade's combat knife flashed, drawing alien blood. The Deathblade's armored fist connected with her ribs, sending her sprawling. Dazed, Wade looked up to see the timer reaching 0. With her last ounce of strength, she lashed out, kicking the device sideways. It skidded into a heavily shielded chamber just as blinding light erupted. The blast was mostly contained, but the shockwave still sent Wade flying. As darkness claimed her, she allowed herself a small smile. She'd done her duty. The complex, and thousands of lives, had been saved. Hours later, Nicholas Burns stood amid the wreckage, staring at the sheet-covered form of his protege. Xenos approached, his expression grim. "She died a hero," Xenos said softly. Burns nodded, his teeth clenched. And we'll make sure it wasn't in vain. It's time we took the fight to Zelos. No more hiding. No more running. Xenos squared his shoulders. My people will stand with you, Burns. Together, we'll root out this cancer once and for all. As they left to plan their assault on the sanctum, neither man could shake the feeling that their greatest challenge still lay ahead. In the depths of that ancient fortress, Zelos waited, along with secrets that could shake the very foundations of their world. The icy winds howled across the desolate mountain range as Nicholas Burns surveyed the hidden entrance to the sanctum. Long-range scanners revealed the true scale of Zelos's underground fortress, a sprawling labyrinth carved deep into the rock. This ends today, Burns growled, his breath frosting in the frigid air. He turned to his assembled forces, a mix of battle-hardened ghosts and Xeno's elite Raman commandos. Alpha Team, gear up for ice penetration. The rest of you, prepare for frontal assault. As the diversionary force moved into position, Burns led Alpha Unit to a secluded patch of permafrost. The whine of excavation drills filled the air as they bored through layers of compacted ice and rock. Suddenly the ground gave way beneath them. Burns tumbled through darkness, landing hard on a slick, icy surface. As he scrambled to his feet, his night vision implants revealed a nightmarish scene. Massive scaled creatures stirred from ancient slumber, their serpentine bodies uncoiling in the vast cavern. Razor-sharp claws scraped against ice as dozens of reptilian eyes fixed on the intruders. "Contact!" Burns shouted, his rifle snapping up. "Fall back to the tunnel entrance!" Alpha Team fought desperately in the confined space, plasma bolts sizzling against armored hides. The beasts lunged forward, jaws snapping shut inches from Burns's face as he dove aside. Above ground, Xenos heard the sounds of battle echoing from below. Without hesitation, he rallied his Raman warriors. "To the main entrance! We must reach Burns!" Xenos led the charge across open ground, energy weapons blazing as they engaged the Deathblade defenders. Bodies fell on both sides as they clawed their way toward the sealed hatch. In the ice cavern, Burns watched in horror as more of the ancient monsters emerged from hidden crevices. He made the gut-wrenching decision, priming the tunnel's thermal charges. "Alpha Team, fall back now," he ordered. Half his squad scrambled clear as Burns hit the detonator. The explosion rocked the cavern, sealing off the remainder of the ravenous swarm, but at a terrible cost. With his remaining ghosts, Burns pushed deeper into the sanctum's maintenance tunnels. The cold steel walls gave way to structures of impossible antiquity. Burns's skin crawled as he passed chambers filled with grotesque specimens suspended in bubbling tanks. "What the hell is this place?" he muttered, scanning alien text etched into the walls. Forced to separate from his team, Burns ventured alone into the heart of the complex. He entered a vast chamber where hunched, mutated figures chanted in an obscene tongue. At their center stood Zelos, or what remained of him. The Raman leader's body had been twisted and augmented beyond recognition, a horrific fusion of flesh and machine. Tentacles of living metal writhed from his torso as he turned to face Burns. "Behold the true face of evolution," Zelos rasped, his voice an inhuman screech. "Join us, Burns. Transcend your frail human form." Burns raised his weapon. "I'll pass." The sounds of battle grew closer as Xenos' forces breached the outer defenses. Zelos snarled, activating hidden controls. Massive adamantium doors began to slide shut, threatening to cut off the inner sanctum. "Alpha Team, hold those doors open!" Burns shouted into his comm as he opened fire on Zelos and his cultists. A fierce firefight erupted in the chamber. Burns and his ghosts fought with desperate fury to keep the doors from sealing. Mutant cultists fell before their onslaught, but more emerged from the shadows. Just as the situation seemed hopeless, a thunderous explosion shook the entire complex. Xenos had detonated shaped charges at a crucial juncture, destabilizing the sanctum's structural integrity. As cracks spread across the chamber floor, an ear-splitting roar emanated from the darkness beyond. Something vast and ancient stirred in the depths, awakened by the tremors. Zelos howled in rage and agony as his sanctuary began to crumble around him. No! The Great One awakens too soon! Burns stared in mounting horror as a massive, tentacled form began to emerge from the shadows. The battle for humanity's survival had only just begun. The ground shuddered violently, ancient stone cracking and splintering as something titanic stirred in the depths below. Burns stumbled, catching himself on a crumbling pillar as an otherworldly roar reverberated through the sanctum. "What the hell is that?" one of the surviving ghosts shouted, eyes wide with terror. Before Burns could respond, the chamber floor exploded outward. Chunks of rock and twisted metal rained down as a massive, writhing form erupted from the newly formed chasm. Tentacles of impossible size lashed out, each one a nightmarish fusion of bone, sinew, and alien alloys that defied comprehension. Through the comm channel, Burns heard Xenos' panicked voice. "Fall back. All units, fall back." The transmission cut off in a burst of static. Burns watched in horror as the abomination swept aside Xenos' elite Riemann warriors like toys. Bodies were flung through the air, smashing against walls, or disappearing into the creature's maw. The few who managed to fire their weapons might as well have been using water pistols for all the good it did. As the chamber disintegrated around them, Burns felt an invasive presence worming its way into his mind. Disjointed images flashed before his eyes, alien vistas, incomprehensible geometries, and the promise of power beyond imagining. "Sir!" One of the ghosts grabbed Burns' shoulder, snapping him back to reality. "We need to move." They retreated deeper into the sanctum's core, the sounds of destruction echoing behind them. Burns' head pounded as he tried to shake off the psychic assault. Each step felt like wading through molasses as reality itself seemed to warp and twist. They emerged into a vast chamber unlike anything Burns had ever seen. At its center stood Zelos, or what remained of him. The once proud Riemann was now a hulking abomination, his body a grotesque fusion of flesh and machine that hurt the eyes to look upon. "Behold, Burns!" Zelos' voice grated like metal on bone. "The true face of evolution, the key to humanity's extinction." Burns raised his weapon, but Zelos moved with impossible speed. Tendrils of living metal lashed out, knocking the gun from his hands and sending him sprawling. The surviving ghosts opened fire, their plasma bolts seeming to bend and twist as they approached Zelos' warped form. With a gesture, Zelos sent the ghosts flying. Burns watched in horror as his team was impaled on twisted spikes of alien metal that erupted from the chamber walls. "Your primitive weapons are useless here," Zelos sneered. "Embrace transcendence or be consumed by it." The air crackled with eldritch energies as Zelos began a profane chant. Reality itself seemed to fracture, revealing glimpses of realms beyond human comprehension. Burns felt his sanity fraying at the edges as he struggled to his feet. Just as all hope seemed lost, a familiar voice cut through the chaos. "Burns!" He turned to see Ember Wade materializing amidst shimmering fractals of space-time. But this wasn't the Wade he remembered. Her form rippled and shifted, as if only partially anchored to this plane of existence. Burns began, but Wade cut him off. "No time," she said, her voice echoing strangely. "I've seen what's coming. What Zelos is trying to unleash. There's only one way to stop it." Before Burns could react, Wade's ethereal form surged forward, merging with his armor. Energy crackled across his suit as impossible knowledge flooded his mind. In that moment, he understood what needed to be done. Burns stood tall, power beyond imagining coursing through his veins. He locked eyes with Zelos, who faltered in his ritual. "Impossible," Zelos hissed. "You want to see impossible?" Burns growled. "I'll show you impossible." He charged forward, reality warping around him with each step. Zelos lashed out with tendrils of corrupted flesh and metal, but Burns moved with preternatural speed and grace. Their clash sent shockwaves of psychic energy rippling through the sanctum, tearing the ancient structure apart at its very foundations. As they grappled, Burns felt the presence of the cosmic entity pushing against the boundaries of reality, seeking entry into this plane. With Wade's knowledge guiding him, he redirected that unimaginable power back upon itself. The entity recoiled, recognizing in Burns a spark of the same unyielding willpower that had once sealed it away. Unable to reassert its dominance, it turned inward, imploding in a cataclysm of psychic and material energies. Zalos screamed as his connection to the entity was severed. His mutated form collapsed in on itself, drawn into a singularity of compressed dark matter. In an instant, he vanished, cast back into the extra-dimensional depths from which his evil had first emerged. The backlash of energies tore through the sanctum, vaporizing everything in its path. Burns felt Wade's presence fading as the maelstrom of cosmic forces threatened to overwhelm them both. "I'm sorry," Wade's voice whispered in his mind. "This is where I leave you." Burns reached out, managing to grasp a small shard of Wade's essence as it dispersed. Then darkness claimed him as the sanctum.
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel. And for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.